Welcome. This is Tammy Gantt with the Florida Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners Association here, and we're here today with Horse Sense, and I'm joined by a few folks in my guest today.
Hi, this is Kevin Sheilley, and I'm the president of the Ocala Marion County Chamber and Economic Partnership, better known as the CEP.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Felicia Judge, Director of Business Retention at the CEP.
And I'm Jay Bailey, Director of Business Services at the CEP.
Great, and we're here today to talk a little bit about our equine connections in our community with our business community. So it's a perfect fit today because I represent equine, and then we have our big business sector here in our Chamber and Economic Partnership. And so a lot of exciting news going on this week.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the really important things, Tammy, is that we all have to start thinking about is not that it's the equine business and the business community, but that it's all together. And when we think of the business community, it absolutely includes the equine community because it's about business. They're not just pretty farms, though we have a few folks who are out there in hobbies. It's really about the business of equine. And the business of equine is the business of Ocala Marion County.
And I think that's a great point because historically equines had such an impact here, and that's why we're called the horse capital of the world. But I think that all business sectors work together, and seeing this connection of us today and talking about some of the things we talk about really brings it, hits the home run in that aspect.
Absolutely. As we know, and we're going to talk a little bit here in a moment about the economic impact study that we had done on the equine industry on this community. But those ties that run back and forth, those dollars, there are an awful lot of hotels, restaurants, stores, suppliers, companies that wouldn't be here in the way that they are if it wasn't for the equine business. And in turn, there are a lot of things that allow the equine business to be successful here because of the other businesses that are here. So it's a great relationship that exists that really allows all of our community to grow.
Yeah, and so what you're going to hear a little bit today about is we're going to talk about the recent release of the economic impact study here in Marion County, the first of its kind that really looked in totality of what equine impact is in our county to all sectors. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about Export Boot Camp. It's a new program over at the CEP, as we affectionately call the Chamber and Economic Partnership. And Jay and Felicia are here to talk a little bit about that and how exciting it is to have our sister city in Ireland partner with us in various business sectors to create growth in our community. So welcome again. And so Kevin, let's dive right into some of the results of the study and some things that you might have thought were kind of surprising when you saw it.
Absolutely. And let's go ahead and we're going to run over the lead and go straight to the numbers because that's what people always want to know when we're talking about economic impact. As we look at the equine industry in Marion County, the economic impact is about $2.62 billion in outputs, and that's a billion with a B. If we look at just the value added to the GDP, the value added contribution to our local economy, it's about $1.6 billion. Quite frankly, that's the number I like a little bit better, but that's where I live and work. And that it helps support over 19,000 full and part-time jobs. So that's huge. It represents anywhere around 15% of our total economy, depending on which piece of that you want to examine. So that means it's really significant.
And yeah, it's significant, 15%. I mean, that's huge. And coming from the equine sector, we know it's very labor intensive. So that 19,000 jobs does not surprise us, but that 19,000 jobs includes other jobs that are associated with it.
Absolutely. We can look at and identify, I think it's about 6,200 jobs that are directly tied to the industry. But then as we've talked already, if we start thinking about all those other businesses that are directly impacted, and one of the things that we'll talk about, part of the way this study was done, is really talking to businesses and having them identify, in particular, non-equine specific businesses, how much of their revenue was generated by the equine industry, how many jobs it helps to support. We begin to realize, man, that's really significant. And so people may look and want to see 19,000 jobs at a horse farm, and that obviously isn't the case. But when we, again, think about the economic impact and how it spreads throughout our community, those are some significant numbers.
Yeah, and what's interesting, when I've traveled internationally, which we'll talk about some international travels in our next segment, one of the things that I noticed was that they look at impact in a little bit different way, but we expanded out. And one of our impacts that's so vital is the fact that we have a huge infrastructure of feed stores and feed mills and tack shops, and that doesn't exist in other horse capitals. And that synergy really creates some cost savings, but it also provides opportunities and infrastructure for ease of access and ease of other businesses to get involved because they already know there's a big base here.
Absolutely. It's interesting from our standpoint at the CEP as we look at our economy, we talk a lot about growing our clusters. We have a unique cluster here in the fire apparatus sector. We think about E1 and all the companies that support that. We think there's an opportunity within the food sector here or within logistics to grow. And the reason that's important is what we already see within our equine cluster. And that is not only do we have the kind of the primary drivers, but then we have all these other businesses that are there to support. And that help grow and to make that even stronger. So we see that, all the way across the board with our equine base here. And that's really exciting. We most often think about within a cluster, the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. You've got, there's your big Toyota plant, and then you have all the hundreds of suppliers that have to meet that. If we take that analogy and we think about equine, we've got the importance of our farms, our breeders, and our trainers. But then, as we've already mentioned, you start thinking of all those other people, the tack shop, the support, the feed that are here because of that, which then allows more breeders and trainers to be here, which then brings more opportunity for these suppliers. And so it really becomes an opportunity to build on itself.
Yeah, and what's interesting when we talk about suppliers, even FedEx, their numbers shoot up during the show season here when horse shows in the sun are here from January through March. And you think, FedEx, well, I don't get that connection yet. They're shipping supplies for everyone on the grounds there, from things that the judges need to things literally that the horses have, their saddles and their bridles and that type of thing. So there's all these sectors that get impacted that you wouldn't even think about. And even like the places near the show areas, the gas obviously, people are fueling their large trucks to haul their trailers, and so they even see that impact. So again, when you talk about the $2.62 billion and you talk about those numbers, that's why we get to those numbers with all those types of things rolled into it.
Absolutely. And the other thing that makes this industry so unique, I think, not only just as an industry overall, but in particular for equine in Marion County. And part of what really makes us the horse capital is that unique combination we have of what I call the native or landed industry, the farms, the trainers, the feed stores, the feed manufacturer, quite frankly, all of those pieces, but also the unique tourism aspect that we have that's specific to equine. And it's interesting when I start talking to people about that, they think, I understand people come and they want to go tour a horse farm. And that's important, that's part of it, and we're thankful. I'm always amazed at the people who come literally from around the world and want to tour our horse farms, and we're excited to have them. But the significant impact comes from hits. Mm-hmm. It comes from the business tourist who comes for the Thoroughbred auctions at OBS. It comes from the people coming to compete at Live Oak or at the Florida Horse Park for an event. And that becomes a significant piece of our economic impact. And so what makes that number so large and so significant is those two unique things coming together.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing because what we're finding, we have our big Horse of the Year Gala on March 16th, and yes, this is a shameless plug that if you haven't been out to our Horse of the Year Gala at Circle Square, March 16th is the date.
And the CEP is a gold sponsor.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And I will tell you, but that's a great thing there where we have businesses that are involved in our largest equine event of Florida. On March 16th. So it's a really great combination of folks out there for that event. And the reason I mentioned that event is because we have people coming from out of town for that event, and they're staying now a week. They're not staying just overnight. They're coming in, they're staying for the sales, and they're already calling us saying, wow, the hotels are really full there. What's going on in Ocala? And it's like, well, we have horse shows in the sun, we have Live Oak, and we have all of these wonderful, as you say, events that'll bring in tourists, but also business tourists that are coming in because they're actually competing in these events. And so talk a little bit about, I know when the survey was released, or the study was released, there was some impact that HITS has. So what specifically, can you tell me a little bit about some of those numbers and what you saw from that part? And then we'll go into Ocala breeder sales too.
Excellent. One of the things that worked really well with this study is that the economists who completed it SMRI out of Carlsbad, California, had just completed a study of HIT's winter circuit last year. So we had very fresh, very real numbers that we could add in without having to do another study, which is always a good thing. And if we look at HITs, it really is a phenomenon. Phenomenon, that's a new word that I just invented for just for the equine industry.
I think that comes from that Super Bowl commercial.
Exactly.
Very good. Very good.
There's the tie. But if you look at it, 20,000 spectators will come to HITs during their, and this was last year, so they've expanded that. They've gone from 9 weeks to 12 weeks now. So in last year they didn't have the Nations Cup, but last year they determined about 20,000 spectators. That's a lot of people coming to watch, who are coming and spending money. But then you add in, there's about another 20,000 that include the participants, the judges, the vendors, the exhibitors. Suddenly we're talking about 40,000 people coming for HITs. Those are great numbers. And a lot of those are people who are coming. It's not a local tourist. It's someone who's coming into the area. They're staying in the hotels. They're doing all those pieces. So that gets to be really significant. And they are, in general, the folks who are coming down, we were talking last night about some of these competitors, some of these spectators. They have a lot of disposable income. It is the most desirable type of tourist to have, and so those are the ones that we look at. So when you look at it all together, the HITS program in Ocala by itself has about $100 million impact.
That's incredible. So we're going to break right now, and so after we go to break, we'll talk about Ocala breeder sales next.
Excellent.
Wonderful. Welcome back to Horse Sense. This is Tammy Gantt with the Florida Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners Association, and I'm joined today by some folks with the Chamber and Economic Partnership, and they are...
Yes, Kevin Sheilley.
Felicia Judge.
Jay Bailey.
Wonderful. If you're just tuning in from the last segment, we were talking a little bit about the economic impact study in Marion County, looking at equine and how it touches all the sectors. And so Kevin's the perfect person to be here today because he actually works with the Chamber and Economic Partnership. And so one of his goals is to make sure that all business sectors are growing in our community. Welcome back, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. That is, we're really focused on our mission is to be the catalyst for a prosperous community. And so as I was telling a group earlier, we want to make sure that all businesses are growing because as those businesses grow, that impacts the rest of our community. And that's especially true of the equine industry.
And I love the catalyst for a prosperous community. It's very simple, but there's a lot of work behind it. But when you think a word catalyst, it really, really just sparks fly and go, and it just creates energy. And I think that's one thing I've seen in our community in the last couple years, because I've only been here about 2.5 years, and I know yourself also. Mm-hmm. And so there was a vibrant community, and Jay's been here a very long time, so she knows about the vibrant community. And Felicia, but one of the things as we coming in new, we're seeing this extra oomph, I guess, if you will, because of this catalyst effect.
Well, we hope so. That's what we like to think. And I think it's really been about the community saying, we're not just going to wait to see what things happen. For in the past, it's been really good for us. It's also been a little negative for us, but we're really going to direct our own future. And we're going to do that by creating opportunities for creating businesses, for growing businesses, for bringing in new businesses, and really trying to strengthen and diversify so that we have a strong economy.
Yeah, and so in our last segment, we were talking a little bit about the economic impact study, and we touched on HITS a little bit, and of course we talked about that business tourist, if you will, that person that comes in and spends economic dollars in our community that's more than 75 miles away, that's outside of our market area, and they come in. So what are some of the things that we notice over at Ocala Breeder Sales? Obviously, before you go into it, I was shocked because when we do the day at the races over there, I counted license plates one year. That was a task that we used to do in marketing at the racetracks. And so 42 different states were represented and 18 countries, and that blew me away.
Yeah, and that's the phenomenon. To me, OBS is the hidden jewel in our community. I think within the equine industry, in particular within the thoroughbred industry, there's recognition of how important OBS is. But I don't know that the average person in our community, and in fact, I would include the average business person, recognizes how important OBS is, not only for what it does for our community, but for the dollars and for the economic impact that it has.
Yeah, it's really just incredible. And for those folks that are not in the community, you might not really realize that it is the #1 sale for 2-year-olds in the world. And that's huge. I mean, anyone in the thoroughbred community knows that, and a lot of horse folks know that. But think about that, #1 in the world. That is a really, really big peg to hang your hat on.
Yeah, and I don't think we've done a good enough job of letting each other know. In fact, we'll talk a little bit about what are we going to do with this economic impact study. Part of it is really about educating our community about the impact and the importance of the equine, and I think a key piece of that is Ocala breeder sales.
Yeah.
So as we start looking, just in some numbers, as you've already mentioned, in 2014, more than 3,100 horses were sold at OBS. And bringing a total of about $142 million. That was a significant increase over 2013, which was a significant increase over the past. So, we're seeing that really grow as a significant. We talked about it's the #1 place for 2-year-old sales going on within the thoroughbred sector. And it's also a great opportunity to think about the significance of that. As we talk anecdotally, and this wasn't part of the study, but as we talk to our friends and the friends we've made within that circuit of thoroughbred auctions, they talk about that the real emphasis has been moving to Ocala, that this is the place that people want to come to. So, how much better in the horse capital that this is where they want to go. And as we look at, you've already mentioned, they'll have buyers that come from 42 states, 18 foreign countries. I would encourage anyone, when there's a sale going on at OBS, I know the week of the gala for FTBOA, March 16th.
Thank you, gold sponsor.
There we go.
Keep mentioning that.
There's a sale that week. And I would encourage people, go out and just look at the airport. Look at the Ocala International Airport and look at the jets that are sitting there. It's phenomenal. And then April, I think, is the really big sale you want to go out and see. But it's amazing when you realize the people that are coming into our community to participate in the thoroughbred auctions.
What's amazing is I like to count, and I would like to count the license plates of all the jets out there, but one day, 26 jets I saw. They were lined up like little ducks in a row. And then if you come late at night after the sales, what's amazing, if you arrive between 8 and 11 p.m., you'll see a huge ramp, and that prepares for the Tex Sutton plane, where the horses are actually FedExed and flown to their new homes. And so that's pretty impressive, because I don't know if I've flown on a charter jet first class. It's pretty impressive that the horses get to do that when they're beginning their careers.
And I wish I had the number. We were in a meeting not long ago with representatives from the Florida Department of Transportation, and one of the numbers that they came right up and they go, we just looked at equine transportation. Do you have any idea how big this number is? Why is this? And so we got a chance to talk about it, but even they were blown away about the equine transportation numbers here. It was so far above and beyond anything that they expected to see.
Well, and it's really interesting because the Department of Agriculture puts out what's called a Fresh from Florida report, and it just correlates what you're saying. It just adds to it, because they actually found that right now the fastest growing commodity in the state of Florida is breeding horses that are being imported or exported. So that's the largest number, and we're actually outgrowing Kentucky in that field, in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and that region, because so many people want horses from this breeding region, and not just thoroughbreds. We're talking about Paso Finos, we're talking about miniature horses, so all sorts of breeds that are being exported from Florida to the Middle East. And so we think about that, and obviously our international airport is an international airport because of the type of thing happening. And it's really exciting. A lot of those horses are being exported. So when we talk in the next segment about that connection with the export boot camp, there is a direct connection in many, many ways, because we have horses that are going there. Other business sectors then can jump upon this opportunity to do that import-export business.
Absolutely. And growing, we talked earlier about the significance of the equine industry here, and how all the spin-off companies, all the support companies, the same thing exists on the export. Let's build around the horse itself that's leaving our area and going international. And what can we do to go along beside that to support and to grow that industry. And as we think about, you mentioned the horses going to the Middle East. If we look at where the buyers are coming from at OBS, we got last year buyers from Qatar only purchased 8 horses. But that included one for $1.6 million, which was a tie for the highest price paid for a 2-year-old in training in North America. In fact, I think in North America, perhaps in the world that year.
Do you think that when he got on the Tech Sutton plane that he got extra peanuts?
You know what? I think for $1.6 million, he should have gotten his own plane. I mean,
He might have.
that's a rock star. That's a rock star, and that's phenomenal. And to me, not only did that horse sell at OBS for $1.6 million, there was another horse that sold in North America for $1.6 million at OBS, and there was one that sold for $1.3 million last year, the third highest price, also at OBS. So it's not only a lot of horses, it's a lot of high-value horses.
Yeah, and for us, our mission here at the Florida Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners Association is to promote the mission of the Florida Thoroughbred nationally and internationally. And so this sale works really well for that as a platform to do that. So what we've found is Florida-bred horses. A good example is Musical Romance. She was born, bred, and raised in Ocala stud. She ends up being a successful race mare, retires in Japan. And so then the Japanese have success with these type of horses. So then they come and they look for good value at the Ocala sales for Florida bred specifically to go to Japan and compete at the highest levels. They just had their 3-year-old champion last year. Asia Express came from here. And now we see what we see is now the South Koreans see this market, and they said there are horses of all levels, not just your $1.2 million horse, your $1.6 million horse, but horses of all levels that they can get, and then they can put on these planes and they can send over there, and the horses are very effective competitors, and they're top of their game. And so how wonderful to know, again, that Florida's spreading the word internationally, and here these horses are running in major venues in other countries and doing very, very well.
Yeah, I think the one number that amazed me is in Korea. They have purchased 1,400 horses from here over the last decade or so. That's a phenomenal number. And that's how exciting. And again, that's dollars rolling back through our community.
And I think that speaks to how great our region is, how well known it is, and not just equine, but also the business sector and all that goes around that. I think the ease of getting in and out of the area to purchase horses and all of that infrastructure plays in. I think when those folks come here, there are also a diversity of restaurants for them to choose from. We see a good example is Tony's Sushi is bringing Asian food for those folks that are here representing the Asian market for horses. We see that, and that's really important when people can come and say, I can have a meal here in Ocala that I also could have in Tokyo, Japan. That's pretty neat that Ocala, being in Central Florida, has those opportunities, and those business leaders provide that.
And I think that's a great segue to talk about. So what do we do with the study? We've got these great numbers. We see the value, and I think the two biggest things that we can do is, one, use it to educate our community, our elected officials, our business leaders, the community at large about how important the equine industry is, that it's not just a farm and a couple horses, but that it is a significant player in our economy. And the other piece is, how do we work with businesses? And you mentioned Tony's Sushi, what a great example, but work with other restaurants, other stores, other hotels to help them understand how can they cater to that equine business tourist, that equine industry, so that their business can grow as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really what Horse Sense developed out of, is how to make those connections. And I feel like we're really, really making this connection today, and I'm so excited you guys are here. Stay tuned for our next segment on Horse Sense Radio. Welcome to Horse Sense. This is Tammy Gantt with the Florida Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners Association, and I am joined today by...
Again, Kevin Sheilley with the Chamber and Economic Partnership.
Felicia Judge.
And Jay Bailey.
Thank you all for being in the studio today. We're very excited because we've been talking about an economic impact study. We're going to talk about export boot camp and our Irish twinning with Newbridge. And we also got a little bit off topic during the break, but we do want to talk about this because it's a passion of mine. I actually work with thoroughbreds, but I had 2 miniature horses. I still have them. And they used to go out in the community and work with children at the Children's Hospital and go to various sporting events to just teach people about horses. And something that you mentioned, Kevin, I found very interesting about something that's happening right here in our community.
Absolutely. And to me, one of the most exciting things of being the horse capital is it is about the thoroughbreds, it is about OBS, it is about hits, but it's about so much more than that. And this is a great example. I was out the other day at an event at Health South, the rehab hospital that's here, and one of the things they've recently added is a miniature horse as part of their occupational therapy program. And so the horse was there walking around, working with patients, and they're in the process of building a paddock at the hospital. And I thought, how exciting, because only in the horse capital of the world would a hospital have a paddock.
Yeah, and one of the first probably in the country to do so, I would think, because a lot of us that have horses know that wonderful therapeutic effect that horses have on people, both physically when you ride a horse because they do mimic the natural motion of a person, so it works very well with people that are challenged in their limbs, but also psychologically. And having had that firsthand experience myself going to the Children's Hospital and taking the horses literally up to the beds of the children and seeing children just be excited to see a pet in a strange situation, a horse in the hospital wearing tennis shoes, of course.
Yes.
The kids really, it brightens their day. But then when you go to other areas where people are challenged with psychological issues and you see them come to life and bond with the horse in a way that is just very amazing. And so I just commend Health South for doing it. And it is kind of appropriate that it's in horse capital of the world.
And, if we think about, just following up on what you said, is, we've got this great program now going on with Health South, but also we can think about Stirrups and Strides, the Marion Therapeutic Riding Association, each who are doing similar but different things, whether that's working with young people with special needs or working now at their expanded programs to veterans. And again, the incredible power of the horse. Yeah,
and we have with FTBOA, or Florida Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners Association, we have the Florida Thoroughbred Charities, and we actually have our open house and in April. We call it 15 and 15 because it's the 15th anniversary of the first farm in the country that partners women inmates, we like to call them students, that earn an equine certification degree while they're at the Correctional Institute working with retired thoroughbreds and bonding with them. These are women that never worked with horses before and were really having some challenges in life and could have been repeat offenders. But what we're seeing is over 100 women have come through the program and have not gone back to the prison system. And it's very, very phenomenal. The warden says every day they're just very impressed with the program and the change in people's lives. And again, it's these horses, it's connection with horses, regardless of breed, regardless of discipline, that really, really can change people's lives. And as we see, I did this economic impact video for the industry called Not Just a Horse in a Pasture. And I think that rings true through our whole community. It's not just a horse in a pasture. And so now we've had this economic study. What do we do? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think, and I want to follow up because it really ties in, I think it's about understanding, again, that education piece, but helping folks understand what's going on, that the equine industry is more than just these couple of things. Talking about the healthcare aspects, if you will, that we've mentioned, and the quality of life aspects, understanding the role of the Florida Horse Park. It's something that it's starting to get a little bit more publicity, but helping people understand, man, we've got $4 million in state investment that's gone into that in the last couple of years. I'm hopeful that we're going to see more go on there, and the number of events and people that are coming in. And then we go right next door. We just did an event at BG Equestrian Estate. What an amazing complex that is here that would not be here, would not be in this community if it were not for the equine industry. And so to begin thinking about all these other things that are here that we can tie in and to grow. So really about looking, we're looking a lot as we do business education, as we're helping companies understand how to grow their business, is to help them understand that here's a key target. How can we help you better understand what the target looks like and how you can best meet their needs? And so we're looking at that from the general business standpoint, if you will, but also trying to work with our equine businesses. Something that was said to me the other day is, well, I don't understand how you all can really help us. Are you a business? you better be operating as a business. And if you are, then we can help you.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point because we're members of the Chamber and Economic Partnership, and obviously Lonnie, that works, that is the CEO of FTBOA, is on your board. And one of the things we find is the more we put into it, the more we get out of it, in a sense of actually our time. And so when I go to a nonprofit council meeting that's a CEP related thing, it ties perfectly in with our Florida Thoroughbred charities. When I attend a session on tax implications for business, I think to myself, this really affects our membership and our equine community. It really, really does. And then I think of Export Boot Camp and what a wonderful opportunity for people that are in the equine world to come to a CEP activated event where they can develop those relationships and learn about import and export, whether they be their horses or, in the case, one of our sponsors is Sneaky Snacks. Maybe, she makes those cookies here for the horses, and those cookies need to be over there in Ireland. And so how do we make that happen? And I think that you're putting some tools in place that once people are aware of them and connect with them, they'll say, you know what, I am equine, but I'm a business also, but I'm a business and I like equine, so what can I connect? And there's lots of those opportunities, just figuring out those niches.
Absolutely. And, what a great example is you talked about Sneaky Snacks. She is, by definition, a manufacturer. She's producing a value-added product. All the things that we do, in particular through Felicia, with our manufacturers, there are things she needs to be aware of and working on, and tools that we have to help manufacturers, whether their end target is a horse, or whether their end target is another manufacturer or another consumer. And so really about helping to partner with the equine industry to focus on the business side of what they're doing.
Yeah, and you mentioned Felicia. It's very interesting because when she came over to our facility and we're looking at ways to partner and do an event to promote, again, the equine business relationship, she noticed that we're manufacturing also. We're a publications. We publish the Florida Equine Communications, so we do the daily wire-to-wire that you see on newsstands throughout the county and the national magazine Florida Horse. And first thing she said is there may be things and benefits and some breaks here that you can have because you're a manufacturing business. And she knows about those opportunities. And so there's that connection, and she walked in and says 5 or 6 things she could identify immediately. And so, again, there's all these things that exist under the component of Chamber and Economic Partnership that push our whole community forward. And so there are those connections. And even we've noticed with HITS, we've challenged some restaurants saying, listen, HITS folks are off on Mondays and Tuesdays. Most businesses kind of gear down on a Monday or Tuesday. We're saying, this is your great opportunity to partner. And business will say, we're open late. And we'll say, great, like 8 or 9 o'clock. I said, people coming internationally from around the world, 8 or 9 o'clock is fairly early. So we've encouraged our businesses to look at things in a different way based on the season and based on the market. And again, that's something that we learn in classes and types of offerings that you have. Anyway, I'm getting the cue to wrap it up. The William Tell Overture's ending. So come back in the next segment and join us. And we'll be talking about Export Boot Camp and our sister city. Welcome to Horse Sense. This is Tammy Gantt with the Florida Thoroughbred Breeders Association, and it is a beautiful, beautiful day to be in the horse capital of the world. I'm joined today by our Chamber and Economic Partnership folks, and
we're going to give Kevin Sheilley a break. I'm Felicia Judge.
Jay Bailey.
Wonderful. Thank you all for coming out today. And I know we're very excited to talk in this segment a little bit about twinning. So, Jay, if you want to kick that off.
Absolutely. Ocala has 3 sister cities, 3 twin cities. A lot of people don't know about the first one was Sincelejo, Colombia, South America. The second one was Pisa, Italy, and now our newest one, about 7 years ago, is Newbridge, Ireland, which has, between Pisa and Newbridge, the common denominator between Ocala and those 2 cities is equine. So we really appreciate you having us here today to talk about the twinning, the boot camp, and the overall impact of the equine industry on our economy.
I think what's interesting is when people think of Pisa, Italy, they don't think of equine. having traveled there myself, I was amazed that they do have a huge equine sector there of all disciplines, which is very representative of our community here. And one of the things that I found, they have a wonderful big national park that you can ride right beside the Mediterranean, San Rosari, yes.
Yeah.
And you also have been there.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's a wonderful relationship, and I know there's a lot of pomp and circumstance involved with when you travel over there for a mission. In fact, I believe you were in a ceremony that was very, very elaborate.
Yeah, the signing with Dick Hancock and the mayor of Pisa was in a 400-year-old building, and every city council person had a ribbon on and pins. And after that, we went to the horse park and had a really nice evening. But the interesting thing about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that when that Thoroughbred horses are very, very popular in Italy, and that they have to learn to run the other way around the track.
Correct. It's just like driving in some places. Some of the countries, the horses go the other way around the track.
Found that very interesting.
And it requires some training, because if they're used to going a certain way and then they jog back the other way, so you don't want them racing the runway and then jogging back when the part they should be racing. So it can be a little confusing for the horses. And people always ask, does the one leg get stronger than the other? And I'm like, no, they're still the same strength in both legs, but the horse does have to learn to change his lead. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I was there, you will see horses and training going through different maneuvers so they can do that. And what's interesting, you mentioned Thoroughbreds. Thoroughbred just a couple weeks ago won their Premio, and one of their really, really big races there. And it was very exciting, because one of the folks connected that with that is NFTBOA Paulo Romanelli.
Yes.
And he actually immediately let us know, say, this is a Thoroughbred. This horse was actually sold at Ocala Breeder Sales, and it was just really interesting to see the connections that are made internationally with the programs with Sister City. And so I know you're here today to talk a little bit about our really, really, really well-developed Irish twinning program. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. What we're planning, this will be the second or third trip that our twinning committee has planned. They typically do the March 17th parade with fire, but this mission is specifically for trade.
And with fire, you mean the fire department?
Yeah, the fire department. Yes.
Fire? They're trying to outdo the Italians.
No. But this is specifically to encourage our manufacturers, and in particular our equine community. It's all about relationships. That's what it really, really boils down to. A simple conversation can turn into a very successful partnership. And just think about Dr. Romanelli. He was the first person from Pisa to buy a Thoroughbred here in Ocala. He took the horse there. His friend said, where did you get this great horse? And then next time they have, more people coming to the sales. So that's what we hope to encourage our equine community to come with us and meet these great folks. And we're going to talk about an export university in just a few minutes, but we've got an overview on March 10th at the CEP at 5:30 that will give the details of the trip. And we really want this to be a turnkey opportunity for people. So they come learn about it. It's be a very affordable entry into Ireland. We'll take care of everything, and then the relationships will just bud from there.
So this is an opportunity to go outbound, to do an outbound trade mission
correct.
over in Ireland. And I think what's interesting, because I've been on a number of trade missions all over the world, and one of the things that you mentioned is the conversation. It's a conversation of opportunity. When you go with an open mind, and you meet people that you don't know at that moment how you can make the connection for them or you, but you bring that back to your business community and the equine community here, and you will be surprised at how things can move very quickly, and you can have a product that then is imported and exported, and you can have a service that can really, really tie in. I know the last time that the Irish group came here inbound, that they actually met with the business incubator in town, and that they got some good ideas and opportunities. They also looked at even how the Chamber and Economic Partnership is structured here, and they also, a number of the folks that had the equine industry in mind, they went on farm tours and they learned about different techniques that they can apply there, and vice versa. In fact, one of the women that I know you met as a doctor, I believe, Dr. Barbara, I'm going to miss her last name here, Dr. Barbara Ann Murphy, and she's from Ireland. When she came over on the inbound, she met with the Chamber and Economic Partnership business leaders, and now she promotes a product that is very good for farms with mares, and so she's really been involved in our community here with that and has a local representative. And that was a connection made by, again, an inbound one, and now your outbound one. So what do you look at for your outbound one? What are some of the other goals that you're associating with it?
Well, the first thing is we've planned it to be equine friendly. So in September, away from sales and away from foaling. So the date of the trip is September 10th through the 17th. But as part of that, we will organize tours, the Irish National Stud. We'll have an afternoon at the Curragh, the race. They'll have an Irish champion race that day. So, lots of equine-related activities. We'll have 2 parallel tracks, one for the business community and one for the equine community. So those details are being worked out now, but it will be a very rewarding and rich experience.
And when you mention equine friendly, really you mean by the timing, because that's
Yes.
when their less busy season is,
Yeah.
if there is one. But what's great is it also ties into some of the major things that are happening over there for equine in Ireland with the Irish Derby. And interesting enough, the connection between Ocala and Ireland existed over 20 years ago with myself, because Evan Arkwright, that's there working at the Curragh, you're making connections with, and I went to university with him for racetrack management over 20 years ago.
Small world, isn't
so
it?
very
Yeah.
small world to know that we're ringing people up that we've had relationships with a long time, but they bring back something to our community. So again, talking about conversations of opportunity. And again, the date, let's make sure everyone's aware
September
of it.
10th through the 17th.
And then the meeting to learn about it's March 10th.
March 10th at 5:30 at the CEP.
In the upstairs, right? And we're inviting all businesses, not just necessarily the equine industry. Newbridge shares a lot with us in addition to equine. They have an industrial base, Pfizer, Oral-B, the candies,
Lily
the chocolate,
O'Brien.
Lily O'Brien chocolates,
Which are really huge now, because apparently it's
Exactly.
hard to get them here in the United States.
Newbridge Silver Factory.
So bring back all your Lily Bryan chocolates.
Right. So we're going to be setting up one-on-one meetings with these industry leaders in both the equine and the business, the industrial, or the technical services, and then roundtables as well. So this isn't just a tourism opportunity. It is a lot of substance, and we're encouraging people to export, and that is the impetus for the Export Boot Camp. It's a 4-part free hands-on instructional workshop, and we are working with the U.S. Department of Commerce's Export Assistance Center. We're working with the Small Business Administration and Ex-Im Bank to talk about how to offer financing options, open credit terms, which allow additional buyers where they don't have to do cash up front. They can actually offer them with these credit guarantees. And it's not scary. The exporting people are like, oh no, I don't want to get into exporting. We're going to make this so easy. And for the businesses who do export-friendly businesses are much more sustainable during times of recession. And in fact, Florida accounts for 1 in 5 of the nation's exporters. 95% of those are small to medium-sized businesses. So it's not just for the big Oral-Bs and Pfizers and E1s
That's a really
and
good point.
the larger companies. This is for anybody that's looking to broaden their global outreach, and this is a great entryway into the European Union by going with this Twin City mission.
And as we talked about, export is just such a huge thing in Florida, import and export.
Correct.
And I will tell you, I had been on at least 3 trade missions in South Florida, wonderful, wonderful trade missions all over the world. And one of the things that I lacked was this class that you're talking about, Export Boot Camp. And so we would go over there, and different business sectors would try to make connections, and then they struggled with, how do I do that, working with the Department of Commerce and working with the partners that you brought together. And it is an exceptional program in the sense that you brought all these partners together that can make it very easy. And I think that's the key, is a lot of people get to that barrier and they don't know what to do.
Exactly.
And you brought the partners together that know what to do, but also can refer them to people with similar business backgrounds and sectors that can then take them to the next level.
Absolutely.
And that's all business sectors. And I as an equine person, I'm a little selfish that I really want to see Sneaky Snacks over in Ireland. I really want to see some of the beautiful leather that's from Italy and some of the wonderful specialty foods from Ireland coming through here. we're the hub. You know, it's wonderful to think Miami, Tampa, and some of the ports, but Ocala has that opportunity. And I think that this is one opportunity to seize it, and having people on the ground building those relationships does that.
It's all about building relationships. We did that last year just in the business retention area. Just by meeting businesses, we introduced them to over 45 other businesses locally that they didn't even know existed. So if we can do that on a local level, imagine with the proper training and opportunities what we can do on a global level. So mark the calendars. I want to say March 17th. How appropriately timed is that? As our initiation on Export Boot Camp to go to Ireland, March 17th. And we're going to do it at Rasmussen College, right there on State Road 200, down across from Dillard's, from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Great. And so we've thrown a lot of dates at you. If you have any questions, want to look up some more, go to the CEP website, OcalaCEP.com or FTBOA.com, or ring FTBOA at 352-629-2160. We'll be happy to put you in touch with those partners. And again, thank you for the best segment that we've had. It's just wonderful, 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 and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Forest
Tammy.
capital of the world.